Hey, how's it going? Wes here, welcome back to another lesson. In today's lesson, we will go over another blue vocabulary lesson. And the topic of today's vocabulary lesson is ways of transportation. And as you can see, I've divided this topic into two different parts. So today we will start with part number 1 of this vocabulary lesson, ways of transportation. Now, just as a reminder for these blue vocabulary lessons, I do not necessarily recommend you to go over all the different blue vocabulary lessons. So if the topic ways of transportation is something that you feel like you want to learn, then please by all means stick around. If not, then don't worry, you can just skip ahead to the next video. Alright, so today's lesson, ways of transportation, part 1 of 2. Let's dive right into it. Alright, so the first word that we'll learn in today's lesson is the car. The car. And we've already seen this word appear a couple of times before, I think. So the car in Spanish is el coche.
El coche. El coche.
Then the taxi in Spanish is quite similar to the English word because I think taxi is originally an English word. So the taxi in Spanish is
El taxi. El taxi.
Then the motorcycle in Spanish is
La motocicleta. La motocicleta.
or simply la moto.
La moto. La moto.
So the motor, la moto, or the motorcycle, la motocicleta. Alright, then the next word, and in some countries you have these more than others, I think, which is the boat, which in Spanish is
El barco. El barco.
And then of course, if we don't go over the water or we don't drive on the land, we can also take the airplane to fly from one place to another. So the airplane in Spanish is el avión.
El avión. El avión.
Alright, the next word is the bicycle. The bicycle, which is la bicicleta.
La bicicleta. La bicicleta.
Or simply la bici for the bike.
La bici. La bici.
So the bicycle, la bicicleta, or the bike, la bici. La bici. Alright, so let's also look at some ways of transportation when it comes to public transportation. So public transportation in Spanish is
Transporte público. Transporte público.
So one of the most famous public transportation systems, I think, is the train. The train, which in Spanish is
El tren. El tren.
And then of course we also have the bus, which in Spanish is
El autobús. El autobús.
And of course we also have the subway or the metro, depending on which English country you're in, I guess.
El metro. El metro.
The subway or the metro. So those, I think, are the 3 most popular ways of public transportation. And so now that we're talking about public transportation and the train, the bus, and the metro, let's look at 4 more helpful words about public transportation. So the first one is the timetable. The timetable.
El horario. El horario.
The next one is the train track or the track. The track in Spanish is la vía. And if you want to say the train track, you would say la vía del tren.
La vía del tren. La vía del tren.
So for example, you might hear something like the train arrives on track 2, for example. So track 2 would be vía 2 or vía número 2. So the train track, la vía del tren. Then of course we also have the stop, and this can be in a bus, metro, or train.
La parada. La parada.
And if you're in the bus or the subway or the train, you might hear
La próxima parada. La próxima parada.
which means the next stop.
La próxima parada.
Alright, and with that being said, that's actually already the first part of this 2-part series of ways of transportation in Spanish. As always, make sure to download the reference sheet of today's lesson if you want to practice with these words that we learned. Alright, that's it for today's lesson. Thank you so much for watching, and of course I hope to see you in the next lesson. Adios.